Hello everyone, I think I'm live. Yeah, let me prepare here. I see many people coming. So hey Tito, how are you man? Hodik, Vitor, Thiago, Manuel. Thank you for coming. Hello Manuel, hello Tito. I see you asked for to join Tito. Do you wanna join now? Uh, Let me prepare here the presentation. Just a minute. Mhm. Great. Hello, everyone. Just a moment. Cool. Okay, good. Hello, everyone. So I think we can start, right? And just a little 5 minutes late because we were in the stage. We all. So I think today I'm gonna talk about why tell your story. Tell your story is important to get an international job. Uh, I as a subtitle here, I got my first international job this year, so it was really amazing. And telling my story was a very important part of this achievement. I, I realized during all this journey that telling my story was the thing that made my interviews better or worse. So that's what we're going to talk today, and then I give you some tips that I discovered that moment. Hello, Alan. Good morning. Hello, Tiago. Good morning. Hey. Great. Well, let me present myself. I'm Pedro Cavalero. I'm now a senior software developer at Snap Commerce, but uh, I've been working with uh, development since 2004, right? After my graduation, and I worked uh, I worked as developer and software Java architect many years, but then I spent some time doing management. I spent some time, another moment saying being architect, another moment being a developer. So I think during this almost 20 years of career, I have done many different roles in the software development industry. So I think uh, that's the moment when you need to think about your story, because when you're trying to get new jobs or trying to get to understand what's your next step in your career, you need to get to look at yourself and understand you and understand how you can sell you to the interviewer, right? So that's why I prepared this presentation. Well, every interview starts with this question: tell me a little more about you. Okay, so when you are trying to get a job and you apply to interviews, you are invited to interview, uh, the first moment you have is that the interview start talking sometimes you start talking about the company, but and when you get your moment to talk, it's tell me about you. What you gonna tell to the interviewer? So, man, you have almost 5 to 10 minutes to talk about your story, and you know, there's some reports that discovered that in average, the interview takes 6 minutes and 25 seconds to choose if you are a good candidate or not. 6 minutes and 25 seconds. you have 6 minutes to make this first good impression to the interviewers. So at that moment, you are telling a story, the interviewer chooses you or not. Man, uh, uh, and you have about 1 hour interview, you have another technical interviews, you have many other things, and you have just this first moments, right? We know that we have lots of different interviews, but it's for each one of them, right? But for each one of them, you have this mm, less time, this small time to give your first impression. So, man, that's your moment to shine, to shine. So if you need to have a good story, you need to have your story. You need to know yourself, right? So why we need to tell? Why tell your story is important in this case? Well, we know everybody loves a good story, right? If you're a good storytelling, you listen to people, you get the attention, you think about the things, to you focus on what the people is talking, right? But yeah, but this is not exactly why we are talking here. The first moment, the first important thing about telling a story is to know better yourself, right? uh, Most of the times during our careers, or during we spend most of the time in the job, like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, right? And then we start, when we change jobs, we start thinking about it. So uh, most of the experience you experience, most of the moments you have, most of the learnings you had in your job and your past jobs, we forgot. We just forgot. Yeah, we have memorable moments that we need to rescue from our memory when someone asks for us to tell our story, right? And that's the problem here. For example, me, I have 19 years of career, right? So when I started developing Java, I learned Java 2, 19 and 2000, year 2000 maybe. And when I started working with Java, it I will be using JDK 1.3 in production. 1.3, right? So, man, this is something that I could tell in the beginning of the story in a really, really brief phrase that says, "Man, this guy is old on Java, right?" But if I use this part of my story, it's just a brief moment that say, "Oh, this guy have Java experience," you know in it's a small part of the story, right? And some, and JDK 1.3 is not that good because we are using in a J2EE server, and well, it's not something you want to remember, right? Because the Bolon servers and JDK, old JDKs are not that were not that good at the time. When JDK 1.4 comes, it improves a lot the performance, but well, and then you forgot these things, right? So something you need to rescue this from your memory, right? And I say, believe me, you will find much more about yourself after you start telling your story that then you can remember. Okay, when you start telling a story, the stories come to your mind. So more you think about it, more you lower your imposter syndrome. We all know has imposter syndrome, right? So because there are lots of things in technology, there are lots of things you need to study. We think we don't know nothing, right? But when you remember this you think, man, I have value, I have experience. So that imposter syndrome starts to lower, right? It's really important. And when you remember everything and you know better yourself, you have good stories to tell. But remember, you don't have 5 to 6 minutes, so you cannot say every story you remember, right? You need to choose when the opportunity comes. And the choosing is the most important thing here. Well, and how this will help me to get a job? Well, the first thing is the 6 minutes and 25 seconds, as you will remember this, right? And you have this short time. Yeah, we all struggle with this syndrome, right? And thanks, Thiago. Thiago is saying, yeah, I struggle with this syndrome really hard. We all do that, man. There is no one here that don't struggle with this, because this is really difficult. We have lots of different technologies, we have lots of different things to study, and we will never get everything, right? But we have our experience, we have what we have learned, what we have experienced during this learning, during the work, right? So that's our strengths. It's most important to interview, to show that we know something because you work with it, than if you just read some article or other thing, right? So show your strengths is important by telling examples, right? Telling examples about how you learn the things, how you handle simple and complex or technical tasks, or how you helped, or how you teamed with other people to find a better solution for a problem. you know that's why this all this tell story thing helped me to get a job, because when you think about it, and all these stories, and you choose the stories correctly to the correct interviewers, man, it will really help you to get your job, to get that job, or to get any job you are trying to apply, right? uh, because a good story drives the interview. We are in the beginning of the interview, right? When you start telling your story will drive the interview. Most of the time, if you tell a good story for that job, the interview starts interacting with it. The interview starts asking about something you just told. So the interview starts discussing something some of your solution, or how you handle this kind of situation, or if that situation was different, what you would do. That's the good of this, because you are in your comfort zone. You're talking about something you experience, right? You are prepared to talk. For example, I had many different interviews here, and for example, I was trying a job, applying to a technical product manager at Microsoft interview. So, well, I read the job description. It takes you need to have a very technical background, so you need to be a very technical person. I prepared my story, focus on my technical skills, and I passed for the first interview with the HR, and they say, yeah, that's exactly what we're going to need. I will prepare you to talk with our hiring manager, and then I start talking with hiring manager, and start telling my story the same way I did. During the story, I realized that story was not that good. It was too technical. Oh, too technical. I was showing my technical skills, right? But he said, no, well, I'm looking for a more managerial person, a manager person, someone who has more experience in management, and someone who could help me on this. I say, whoa. So I told my story totally wrong, right? I know we have only 5 to 6 minutes to make someone's mind, right? So that interview was just lost. I tried to discuss, but this interview was just lost. It was not it was not possible to revert this. Even so, if I have many years of management experience, I just didn't told them, didn't tell him, and he well, you can say, it's on my CV, but it was nothing on the story. Well, another moment, I was trying to apply into a software developer position, and well, I have a good architect experience. Like, I have many years in architect as a assistant architect at Ericsson. I have many years of Java architect during my career, and I focused on this. So I focused on my architect experience. I was talking about designing systems products that I have worked at, and more or less, and less coding examples in this case. And then I discovered that the interview was looking for more coding discussions. Just not, he was not interested in architecture or other things, right? So, well, I think I spend my 5 minutes talking something the interview doesn't want to listen. And now you can say, oh, that so you are applying to the wrong position. Mm, well, it was in the job description said some about architecture, and I thought it was about it. And okay, we can say that job was not what I was looking for. Okay, I remember. But we are talking about telling stories, right? The stories, it was not correct for that job position. So well, for this kind of job, I need to focus on coding stories, but it was not the case. And there were the last year I had the invite to a CTO position. I saw, man, very good. Last year I was head of technology of a Brazilian startup here, and being head of technology in the beginning, I had to work with lots of technical things, but during the evolution of the team and the evolution of the product, I started to be just a manager, um, uh, managing the teams, managing the products, and interacting with the product managers, etc. And it was really good for me. I had a really good experience on management that 2 years ago, and this CTO invite came to me, and bang, I was really prepared to tell that story, and I told all the story about being in my first position as manager, the other position I had with management and technical leading, and then to as head of technology, and say, oh, now you are now I'm prepared to this position. So it was a fantastic story. 5 minutes, people were sold. I say, oh, fantastic. So yeah, I chose the story correctly. I told the story correctly. I had that story in my mind. I just told everything I have tried. I have trained for telling. And people, well, success. Well, I can say I'm not CTO today, so I think I can say that it's not. It went well, but I just declined of the opportunity, and it was not what I want. All this discussion about the management and technical paths of the career I had this last year. That's why I'm a developer today. So, well, the story was correct at least. So how do you prepare your story, right? I'm talking about my experience, but how do you prepare for that? Well, let me talk about things you can do now, because now is the moment. You need to. It's important to you to find your most important experience in each job you have had, right? And each project you've worked in your career, and this is it's the easy part, right? You just list everything. most of the things you have in your CV, so it's not that easy to find. It's not that difficult to find, so you can just list it. But it's important to connect the dots. So, what the strongest skills that you gain, or you learned, or you had to improve during this experience? That's the most important thing, because when you are telling a story, you need to show your strengths. To show your strength, you need to show your best skills, or the skills that you have more experience. Like in my case, for example, I'm a Java developer, and I will go to an example in the next slide, right? I will show an event about that. And find examples is important. So you need to know the experience, find the strongest skill you want to show, and have an example for that, right? And then you organize the story based on the job you are applying that we were talking before, right? For example, my case here, I have experiences. As Java software developer and software architect, right? Architect itself, like assisting architect, more with more analysis, discussion, design discussions, and as head of technology. But I have some experience as project manager as well, and other kind of managers, system management, etc. And this is my experience. But well, just the experience we can put in the CV. What the skills I get from this experience? Well, Java coding, Spring Boot, Swing, Java Desktop, Java Web, anything, right? System architecture, in my case, for architecture, so how to explain architecture, how to choose an architecture, what's the pros, what's the cons. So this is some skills you get from architecture. And when you go to management, you need to talk about leadership. You have to, because when you talk about manager, you need to talk about people. So leadership is a very important skill. But just say, "Oh, I was a manager, so I have leadership." No, it's not. It's not your story. Your stories are the examples. So in my case, I work in Air Force systems in Java. I worked at Air Force in the beginning of my career, and I have really nice examples of systems. I work in war games systems. I've worked in a system that makes the military, the Air Force military officers in Brazil, they train if we have a war. You know that the Brazilian train that? Yeah, the military here in Brazil train for that, training for war. So in the war, the training for this war was done in our systems. So the system that we have worked to. And at that time, I was a leader of our team to create this system. So it was really really interesting example that if it's important to the interview, it's good to say. But when I was an architect in Ericsson, I was working new features for a really big product, really big. I was working in a system that has more than 1,000 developers. It's really big. So I think when you're applying to a job that will be working on big products like that, having this kind of experience is really good to sell. If you don't tell people, you don't know, right? If you don't explain what this kind of product is, it's not your CV that you tell it. And if I try to some management things, or need to most show my leadership skills, I was leading engineering team of a product. All the products for a startup, right? So this is really, I had really good problems there. And that the problem is the other thing, right? You need to tell about the failures, right? We are talking about the strengths here. We are talking about, oh, I have these skills. I'm a good professional. I'm a fantastic people. Well, I'm people who love me. No, if you don't talk about your fails, the interview don't believe you, right? Because everyone has failures. Every story has bad stories, I can say. If you don't tell during your story, the interview will ask. Many of the interviews have this the script saying, "Oh, what your strength? What your fail? What your how can I say? The thing you are the worst, for example. I'm most sometimes when I talk about coding, I say, "Oh man, I'm the worst person who tries to make a user interface. All my interfaces are really really bad, so that's why I'm architect, and that's why I'm backend developer. i'm I have no way to understand css, for example. But you have other stories about failure, so it's important to you to remember that. We know that we choose to forget that, right? But well, uh, in my case, for example, there was one case I was remember now, that I broke the production when I make a release there. Well, it was really really bad because it stopped the system and stopped the sales. So mm, it's not a good thing to remember, right? And well, we had to find the thing. We grow back all the changes we have done, and but it was not weakness. Oh, thank you. Strengths and weakness, right? That exactly. Yeah, my English is is still is still I'm still ongoing on them. So when I was and what when I talk about this story, I say, oh, what we have done on this? Well, I have to communicate with my superiors. We have to communicate the team. We have to understand the problem, do this, choose the solution, and then choose what we need to do to not it happen again. So all the things, right? And how you handle that is important. It we always will have failures, but we need to know how to handle. We need to be prepared to handle when this fail happens. So this is what the interview is looking for. What you learn from these failures. So it's important to have in mind. It's important to you write the story again. To you remember the story, and then you know what you want that interview knows about this story, because it's important to you to tell him. So you tell your point of view of the story. So this is the important. Uh, well, and the interview will know when you talk about this, because he will know that you are showing him something you did that was not great, right? So this is part of your story, right? It's important to show this. Yes. Well, and now you need to choose all these things you have analyzed to have a different story for each different job. If you are applying to a developer, you need to focus on development things, and all the examples will be development things, or sometimes a small leadership, or sometimes a good story of launching a product, right? When you are a manager position, you need to tell about the leadership. You need to tell about stories your team about. You help your team. You lead your team to get the products done or something. I like to tell. I love that the story about the rebranding we had 2 years ago in my last job, because rebranding is something really really hard to do, right? And all the preparation for this has lots of different sides of this story you can tell. If I'm telling about in my management story, I need to tell how I organize the things, how I divide the people, how was make the project of that organization of the tasks, or if we were talking about development things, how hard it was developing parts of this rebranding, So the focus is important. The focus is important when you're telling a story, even if you are talking about the same example, well, and sometimes it's even the same story is different because we are choosing some companies for if you are trying a company that is for example, a health industry. If you have any health experience in products for health or something related, it's more interesting that you, in my case, for the military, right? I have no, I haven't, I didn't work in any other companies that works for militaries until now. After my military experience, so I didn't. Most of the time, I don't tell my military story. That's because there is no opportunity to do that. And well, and train, man, you need to train. If even if you have all this written, you cannot choose the stories at that moment because you don't have 5 minutes to do that. You have 5 minutes to tell the story. So having it trained is important, right? uh, I had many interviews last year, many interviews. I used all the opportunities I had to train the interviews and to understand the to understand all this how these things works, right? And I think, and I had already in my mind, when I try a more management position, a management story. When I try a more technical position, a technical story, right? And changing a little bit each one. So other thing important is the language. When I was in the Brazil, when I was in interviewed for a Brazilian companies, Portuguese is my language, so it's really easy to tell my story, even in a very good way, using good words. But when I was interviewing for international job, English is not my primary language. You can say I forgot the words. Manuel is helping me with this now, and it's not easy to tell a good story if you are not trained in that language. So English is important, right? Training English is important. Yesterday, Silvio was saying comments that having a good communication in English helped him a lot in his career. He was working for U.S. company, so if he didn't have a good communication skills in English, he couldn't do that, right? Lots of discussions with clients and customers and other developers, right? So it's really, really important to have the English trained and the store trained in that language, right? For example, another example in this, my current job, that position that I got now, I I was referred for a friend to that company. When you are referred, the path is really is you go out from that, what Bruno always says, that is the when you are in a path that people are there to fail, right? And lots of people go to Google, so Google has a process that most fail all the people, and then they choose the one who's left. But in most of the jobs, they are not public presented, are not in this path. You are indicated, so they are thinking, oh, his guy should be good. Let's talk with him. So you have that 6 minutes to show you are that good, that people has your friend said, oh, Pedro is really good. But if I am only good if I told a good story, if I tell a good story, right? And then you need to be prepared. I was prepared. It was a developer position, architect position, right? Not a staff engineer, they say. And then I focus on my architecture skills. It was really great. Then I did another interview with the hiring manager, and the hiring manager was a hiring manager for a product in a marketplace product. Marketplaces like Decolar.com or the Buzzon that I worked before. That was a marketplace for bus companies and selling their tickets. And this is the idea. So I worked in a marketplace, and this project was a marketplace, is a marketplace today. So when I focus on this because we are in a related product, as I said before, right? We chose your story because of the thing the interview wants to hear. The interview wants to hear about that. So I focus on that story. This story was really great because all the good parts and the bad parts, the interview feel this thing because she had felt that before, right? And this was really a really good connection. That's the story that I told her, and this was really really good. I have trained to that as well, so that's the most important thing. And then I got the job, right? So yeah, it worked. It worked. Well, and then that's why I say you will be prepared when opportunity come. My friend referred me. I don't know when it will be happen. I don't know when someone will say, "Oh man, I referred you to a good company here, or I referred you to my company because we opened a position here." You need to be prepared. Maybe you are not looking for a job today, but if you're not prepared, when the opportunity comes, you will lose your 6 minutes, right? So this is the important topic here. So well, I want thank you to be here with me. I think it was really great. I open to the discussions. If anyone wants to join the room here, I think we can discuss about this. We can discuss about uh, to be here to work in international jobs. So I'm available here to any discussion you want. Okay, so well I just put here. I talk about this in my Twitter. I like to talk about this in LinkedIn as well, but not only about career, but the how to be a Brazilian international career, the bureaucracy you need to follow, and all the technical stuff. People know about my channel. Sometimes I have a YouTube channel. We're talking about Java. I will need to rebrand it to talk more about other things like Python that I'm working today. So I think we have good things to discuss as well. Well, good. Thank you, Ruston. Thank you, Ruston, for your presence here, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tito. Nice tips, Tito, saying here. So yeah, it worked for me, Tito. I think it's important when something works for you, it's important to share, right? And I think when you are preparing your story, you can understand better yourself. You can choose better. You can choose the jobs you apply. You can choose your focus on what you are sharing on Twitter, what you are sharing on LinkedIn, And knowing you know better yourself to tell you better your story is a great part of that. Okay, Otávio Murilo, thank you. Really nice insights, Pedro. Thank you, Otávio, to be here. And yeah, choose a story to tell for next opportunity. Exactly, because okay, now you are in a position, right? If you are in a position now, we can you can you think, oh, I don't need to be to be prepared for that because I'm not looking for another opportunity, right? But in the case you are referred, in this case, for example, opportunity goes to your door and you are not prepared. Being prepared is important, right? Thank you, Russen. Thank you. Lots of good tips, Russen. Thank you. Manuel, Pedro, you talked about the story for sharing about yourself, but how about preparing the stories for all the behavior questions, like writing a portfolio? Yes, the behavior questions is part of a story too, right? We are talking about the skills here, but not only technical ones. Okay, if for example, if you have a good story about teamwork, it's important to tell. If you have a good story about leadership, if you are the leader, good story about leadership is important, and hiring stories and firing stories are important as well. But if you are not a manager and you are just trying the staff plus engineering positions, that you have to have leadership or tech lead positions, that you have to have the leadership, and you have some examples of these small ones, like you you realize something that no one has realized before, and then you need to tell to everyone and and calls everyone to discuss the things. It's a small leadership work, right? You need to make the other people to understand what we're talking about, and make them to do what you want. So it's leadership, right? Or if you want, or if you're sharing something good for you. So these stories, it's important you to remember, right? It's about your knowing yourself, and then you you can write these things just to not forget again, right? Like writing a portfolio. I don't know what you're talking about to write a portfolio. You know, Manuel, if you can explain. Do you want to join, Manuel? If you want to join here, we can discuss directly. Please ask. I think there is a button here. Yeah, I'm putting you in the screen. Great. I will. Hey, Manuel.
Morning, good afternoon. Can you?
Morning, good afternoon. Just a minute. Thiago said, I've never thought about telling our story in an interview this way. Thank you for the insights. Thank you, Thiago. Thank you. Yeah, I never thought about it as well. I started thinking about it just because I started making many interviews, and I realized that these stories are getting me to a bad path in the interview or a good path in the interview. It's really interesting to see that that first minutes of the interview drives my interview. That I put in the slide. It drives the interview. And when I was interviewing in my last job as well, I realized that I did that, not thinking about it. When the people, I say, "Oh, tell your story to me," and when the people start telling the story, we always use the story to get more of the people. Always, as an interviewer, you do that. And if you tell a good story, you are driving the interview to get you best of you, right? Not getting the worst of you. That's the important thing. And then the interviewer like you, and the 6 minutes, right? The interviewer like you know. So that's the
So
point.
Pedro, can you hear me?
Hey,
Can you guys hear
Manuel.
me?
Yeah, thank you
Okay,
for
yeah,
joining here. If
yeah.
anyone
Thank you,
wants to join with us, please.
thank you for inviting. Yeah, you were asking about what I meant by portfolio, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What
So
do you
it's
mean
based.
about portfolio?
It's like a notebook where you say you write down the question that you think they will ask, like, oh, tell me about a time where you had a conflict with one of your teammates, right? And then you start writing kind of like the star
Mm-hmm.
methodology, like the situation,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
task that you took, the actions, and the result. And so you pick the questions and you write your story, and then you pick the next
Yes.
question. Tell me about a time when you face a challenging problem. And so that's what I meant. It's like you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, it's good to prepare for your 6 minutes and a half talk, but it's also
Exactly.
good to use this approach of storytelling when they're asking you these behavioral questions, you know? And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what I mean. Writing a portfolio, and I was thinking, hey, maybe I can write a quick system there so that whenever the interview is asking, then I can search quickly and pop it up on the screen. Because, like you said, this syndrome of forgetting, right? But
It's
train,
training, I can
memorize.
say.
Hmm.
It is better than you memorize because
It's
it's important to
faster,
have this
more
portfolio,
professional.
right? It's important to have this. All these questions, behavioral questions, are good because they help you to remember the stories.
Yes,
And mostly when the question comes, you don't think about it, you don't remember, man. It at the moment, and you are in an interview moment. It's a really
nervous.
you are nervous moment. You are out of your comfort zone mostly,
Yeah,
and then you think, man, I can't remember
forgot.
anything. I
Right.
forgot. The interview will think that I'm that
You haven't
guy
done.
who
You haven't done anything, right?
oh no,
Or you
not
don't have the
haven't done,
experience.
but I'm proud. I'm proud enough to not tell. Oh, I don't have any problems. I didn't have any issues. Uh, I didn't have any failures in my career. You know, because the failures you mostly forgot sometimes, right? You make strong forces to forget some bad things that working that happens in your life, and then well, it's not easy to remember. But when you need to remember, it's important to have it wrap up in a good shape. And for you, and even for you, that's why I'm talking about the know better yourself, right? Because all these things makes what you are now, right? What that bad moment you have making in your life today, right? For example, sometimes you are now a people who are much more focused on security or safe it for releasing product to the production because you have other bad moments in the past, like me in my case, and you need to now. I have more careful when I releasing a product, right? So it's part of what I am now. I'm not someone who they I don't care. I will release it anyway, and let's see what happens. I don't do that. I know that there is lots of consequence about that, but it's because of my experience, right? And when you tell some of this experience, you are telling the interview who you are. You know, if the interviewer is looking for a adventure guy that I take risks, you know, he will not choose you. Me in my case, because you are not adventurous guy. But most of the cases, they are not looking for adventurous guys, right? Because they are looking for people who treats their products with careful. So that's the thing I say. You know, the behavioral questions is good to you to remember, but your story you need to organize, right? And then you will ace in your interviews, you know, because the interview will be mostly about what you're talking, most about the things you already know, and you can go more deep in some fun. My last interview, uh, I told that I told that architecture story, my architecture experience, and the interviewer said to me, "Oh, I needed to go more deeper on this part." great. And then I started to say, oh, we are using Kafka to do that, we're using Avro to make the schemas, blah, blah, blah. It was a problem I had before. And discuss, okay, that's it. I say, I want you to go deeper. I'll say, oh, okay. So well, we use Kafka to use schema. The versioning way to version this schema was using this information. Blah blah. We are using the topic partitions Kafka to make the all the messages in good order, and we are using this information as topic partition, and then blah blah blah. I'll say, oh, okay, great. And we are using data binding in the Java framework, blah blah blah. Because she was asking something that I told her. I knew that. So for me it was really good, right? If I have put in my story some part that I don't like people to ask me, like, oh, I don't know much about it. I have another interview in Amazon. They I told them that I have worked at some with some creation of products or putting this in production, and they start asking me about infrastructure things. Oh man, I'm not that good in infrastructure. No, I know something. I know the basics, but I'm not a expert on that. And then these things start going to this path, and then oh man, I will be lost here. And then I was lost because at that time he asked, oh, how do you uh, uh, install a database server in a raw hardware? Or which hardware you're gonna choose? Which types of hard disks, etc. I say, oh, I don't know about that. So because I told a small thing that I shouldn't, and then the interview goes down, and that's the point. I think I like it to this idea of this discussion here, just because of it, because of the we mostly don't think about it, and when we start to do interviews, as I have done in the last 2 years, we realize that as interviewer, it's something you put importance during the interview. The interviewer don't think about it. The interviewer mostly think just react to the interviewer questions, right? I'm not prepared for that. Do you prepare for that? Or do you prepare for the technical things like I know Java, I know Spring Boot? We mostly prepare for this because we think it's harder, right? It's sometimes difficult to answer, but if you use this story to drive for the things we know, oh, I studied Spring Boot a lot, so I will tell stories about Spring Boot, right? And then the interview will go to the Spring Boot path, like, oh, how you create a REST API. Oh, how you handle when the database is taking too long to respond. This is the importance, I think. I'm not telling that we don't need to study for the technical parts. I'm not telling that because it's really important. And it's when you remember all your experience, you remember the things you have studied before, and you are not working now. I'm not working now with Avro. I had to remember that story. If I didn't that before, if I haven't remembered that before, I would remember that in that moment because I would be too nervous. You get it? Do you have any experience in that? like interviews that you got nervous, for example?
Yeah, like I was also in this interview um, where like they asked for an optimization, right? This was the technical, and so I just went blank. It's like I had my notes. I was like hesitating, should I use the internet? And
Mm-hmm.
the interviewer was like waiting, and
Mm-hmm.
I went blank. It's like it was about calculate the median for an
Ah,
array
right.
of numbers, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so
Right.
very quickly I went through the problem, but then jump into optimization. And
Understood.
I knew I was not prepared for the interview because, like I said on the previous meetings, it's like I'm on the supervisor, so I'm more of like reviewing
Mm-hmm.
code, reviewing the other guys' work
Mm-hmm.
as a supervisor. But
Mm-hmm.
and we don't use, like in this case, I thought of using a tree, right? And I just read about like AVL trees, how it sorts the numbers in a more
Uh,
better way. But then I
yeah.
got stuck there because I couldn't remember, you know
How?
yeah, I
Yeah.
couldn't remember. Okay, how can I really use the AVL tree? I kind of knew, but
Mm-hmm.
it didn't pop up to my head. It's like I know that has better sorting, but that's it. It's like, and then he started
Mm-hmm.
asking, you know, okay, so tell me what is a tree? I couldn't explain what is a tree. It's like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I I mean the thing was I we barely we never use trees in my work. It's like we
Mm-hmm.
don't use them, But this is a
Mm-hmm.
problem. I thought maybe I should use a tree here. And then he asked me what is a tree. I couldn't give him an answer. It's like I felt
Mm-hmm.
really bad, really, really
Yeah.
bad. I mean, we know there are nodes, there's a parent, there is the leaves, the childs, but I couldn't like think of a structured answer. It's like a tree is a
Mm-hmm.
way to represent data in a hierarchical
Right.
way or
So
something like that, right? But
yeah,
I
yeah,
just went blank. I just failed it. It's like in that moment, I felt like I'm failing the entire interview here because I went blank. I look like I don't know anything about data structures.
yeah,
It was bad.
yeah. It's not. It's problematic when you start going to a path that you're going down. It's really difficult to go back in that short time because we have a short time to do that, right?
Yeah.
And this is in the moment you are nervous, you start going to a bad path. I had this experience last years as well. Let me just read here. The Tito said maybe choose a couple of stories and have a sticky note in your memory just to remember. Yeah, yeah. That's what we're talking about. Create having it written, right? Very good, Tito. And Rodrick said, what do you think about coding tests? Sometimes the interview went very good, but the coding test is not. Yeah, that's what we're talking about, Manuel. I think that coding test is another thing, right? We when we That's what the different paths that Bruno has said in the yesterday. I think you were there, right? About that paths when you are in a path to pass or in a path to fail, right? The coding tests are in that kind of process, the process of the in the path of fail. So the coding test here may be some tests that you do by yourself, like using that coding platform like Coder Bytes or Hack Hank. Not Hack Hank, I think they don't use that.
Yeah,
There are
it's
lots of
HackerRank and Lead
Hack Hank
Code.
is for lead code, but there is some they just use it for hiring, you know, and that is the 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 good part when they send you a link and say, "Oh, go do that," is that you are alone, and then you can think, you can try to understand the thing, but mostly you have time, and then this is it. It's not what it's not telling stories here more. It's not it's not based on your experience anymore, right? That's why I say this is the failure test. In this kind of test, most people from the university goes better than people who are in the 10 years of experience.
That's exactly what I told the HR guy. It's like this test is like very easy for a just graduated engineer. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really. I couldn't give. It didn't give me the opportunity to show what I know. Right, with the problem calculating
Exactly.
the median. Really, it's like this is very simple. You know, I can search in the web, figure out pretty quick. Right.
Exactly. You can go to the web and say, "Oh, how to do that?" And you can do that. Maybe you have a function already doing that, and you put that because you are experienced developer. You know that you can find it or in any other place, or you are experienced architect or experienced supervisor that you know that you are not asking your employees to try to discover how to do that in a puzzle way. You are not doing that in your work, right? So that's why we're saying that this is a failure path because they just want to filter. Now I think they have 100 people in a in a funnel for candidates. I have seen that in my current position. They had 250 people for
And you know,
10, 10 positions.
I
And I
asked,
say,
I asked for a hint, but the guy, no, he wouldn't give me a hint. It's like, okay, let's go back to basics. And he asked me, okay, what is a tree?
mhm.
Shit.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
put me on the spot.
And that and when you are in that moment, you think, okay, I'm an imposter. I don't know anything. It's not true, right? We know that it's because that company just want to people who apply to that job needs to have this kind of training before because it's training. And I can say I was telling to other people, you need to train to this if you want to if you are trying to apply to jobs in LinkedIn. You find a job in LinkedIn, you apply. You need to be trained for that because they don't know you. You are not referred by anyone. You are just a guy who just pinged them in their system, and well, they are not thinking about you. They don't like you. They don't. They just well, okay, you can pass this, okay, pass that,
They
and
don't
and I think
trust
it's
me.
worth.
Trust.
Yeah, I don't trust you. That's the thing, right? And they even worse when the people do this when there are another people looking at what you are doing, right? It's just like you are coding here and there's someone in your shoulder here. Oh, I
Following you.
don't like. Yeah, looking here. I don't like what you're writing here. Oh, I think it's not that good. Oh, but you're not telling what I'm thinking. No, I don't. It's not that good, I think. Well, we sometimes we need to pass for this. Sometimes we can try to get referral, and then we can go go past from that. I had another opportunity last year about like this. I I I a friend of mine referred me for a position in a less not the same company I have worked before. People ever no all the people know me. It was really easy. The interview was fantastic interview. But they say, oh man, I need you to go to this test here. I look at them and say, oh okay, and I open the test. They have gone. I was just alone. I couldn't do that because of the time, because I don't like this kind of tests. I tried my best at that time. It's like you said, when you go in a worse, a bad path, you cannot go back. The time you finish, okay, I put that. It made no in they didn't look at it at all. You know, because it was just to take some checks in the
Follow
HR,
the process.
Yeah, follow the process, but they were not caring about that.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Okay, I need to make that just to follow the process, but the hiring manager was already decided.
Yep.
You know, so that's the point. I think when you are when the hiring manager is already decided, maybe if they don't need to follow the process, the HR process, they don't. They even choose to not to do that. So that's it's really important. I think when you be prepared when you are referred, or you know people here. For example, if some in some moment in the future we find to being referred to each other, or will be working together, or any other thing, right? I had a moment when I was interviewing. I don't remember, but there was I was in the interview, and then the interviewee was someone that I had worked before, and I really liked his work. The manager said, "Oh, do you know him?" I said, "Yes, I know him. He's a really really good guy. We have make very good work before." And the manager said, "Oh, okay." During the interview, and he was hired. So it's not a. It's really interesting how this uh, psychological thing works when we are trying to hire someone.
Pedro, I'm sorry to interrupt here. I did register for the Find a Dream Job with the open source, but
Perfect.
it's really nice to talk to you. I hope
Really
we can talk
nice.
some more in the near future. Thank you very much for
Mhm.
inviting me to your talk.
Thank you very much to come, Manuel. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your advice. Very good. Very nice.
Thank you for your questions. Anyone want to make any other question? If no, well, so thank you everyone. I think it was a really good conversation. Uh, I will be here during the day in the event. I will be uh, joining some sessions. So I think if you remember anything and wanna talk, just ping me. Okay. Thank you very much. Take care. Thank you, Roddick. Thank you, Tito. Thank you, Manuel. Thank you, Vitor. Thank you, Thiago. Bye bye. Thank you, Otávio. Great.